Hey everyone, this is Chris DeFurio with Keys to the Shop. Welcome to another episode of the show where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. So thrilled to have you here. If you have not yet subscribed to the show on your podcast players, then do so. That would be amazing. You'll always be updated with new episodes. And we put out about 10 episodes every month just to keep the value flowing for you, but also don't forget to subscribe to YouTube as we continue to produce more video content, both that is the parallel of our audio podcast, but also unique content that you're not going to want to miss, and some deep dives into topics that will really be helpful for your coffee shop business, your career. If you're a leader in a coffee shop, in an owner, or just someone who is fascinated by the way the world of coffee shops work, this show, Keys to the Shop, is for you. So go ahead and subscribe, hit the notification bell for updates as they come in. So now I am really thrilled to be doing what I do. You know, doing the work of coffee for 25 years now is just fascinating that I've been able to do it this long. And doing this show has been such a treat. It's been an honor for 7 years. And one of the things that I've been doing a long of time here now for the past 5 or 6 years is Keys to the Shop consulting. And that is where I get to work one-on-one with folks like yourself to help you optimize and level up your operations, your people, and your quality in your coffee shop. Whether you're just starting out for the first time, or you have a coffee shop and or coffee shops but want to increase that quality and level up those operations, there's a lot that I've been able to do with so many people over the years, and maybe this is something that would be helpful for you as well. So if that's interesting, reach out to chris@keystotheshop.com. That's my email. Let's have a free consultation call, discovery call. We'll talk all about what's going on and how Keys to the Shop Consulting might be able to help you. Now, today's episode is brought to you by the wonderful folks over at Ground Control. And if you're not familiar with Ground Control, right now, you might want to go over to groundcontrol.coffee and take a look, because this piece of equipment is actually changing people's worlds. It is blowing people's minds and palates, because the SCA award-winning technology in this brewer allows you the access to flavors that other brewing technology just couldn't offer before. And with the Ground Control, the Cyclops brewer was the flagship. It's a design that is award-winning as well, and that's in coffee shops all over the world. But now they've got a new brewer. It's more accessibly priced, just the exact same kind of quality, a bit smaller, so it fits in more places in your cafe, but it has 30% higher output of batch espresso for like batch iced lattes, as well as cold brew. 8-minute cold brew is what this machine can do. So it's kind of an all-in-one machine that allows you to be opening up new channels for profitability, but also new levels of quality. So again, go to groundcontrol.coffee to learn more about the Ground Control brewer. This is the kind of thing I think you really need to find room for in your shop. I think it is just game changing, like I said. So groundcontrol.coffee. Now, the other sponsor of today's episode, we got to give some love to the great Barista series from Pacific. I've been using the Barista series for a very long time, and professionals from all over the world are swearing by this, because the Barista series was created for baristas and tested by baristas before it even leaves the factory. All their extensive lineup is capable of producing amazing silky texture. It stands up to the heat from the steaming process. And on top of that, you get a beverage that focuses on the coffee, and that is critical. Your customers just love this, and plant-based beverages are sometimes, and a lot of times actually, way more popular than regular milk beverages, and the Barista series does it like no other. So go to pacificfoodservice.com, see what they have to offer, get samples, and try it for yourself. I think that's the best thing to do, and I think you'll be impressed. Again, if you're looking for the best plant-based beverage for your customers, then try the Barista series from Pacific. You will be pleased, I think. So today's episode is going to be featuring a conversation with the new U.S. Barista champion, Frank Law, founder of Be Bright Coffee in Los Angeles, but also long time coffee professional. Ever since way back in around 2009, 2010 or so, Frank has been a fixture in the coffee scene early into his career doing cutting edge service work with various small coffee shops in the Los Angeles area, and working with artists, working with multiple roasters and art. It just, the community of Los Angeles was the canvas on which Frank was just painting and experiencing his come up in coffee. And competition was a big part of Frank's career, as well as becoming a trainer and manager and regional manager at companies like Copa Vida on the West Coast, before going to start his own place, Be Bright Coffee. And in competition, he competed alongside some great industry luminaries and pursued this world of competitive barista work in earnest. And through his experience in successes in coffee competition and in barista work, he has developed a very well-rounded perspective on how to prioritize our craft and our pursuit of what he is using now as his mantra, and for a while now, the pursuit of perfection. It is a philosophy that was a theme in his competition this year. A competition, by the way, that was 9 years in the making. He had taken a break from competition to focus on business, to focus on working to help grow a company like Copa Vida, and then found his own company and run that, and came back to win it all. And today we're going to be talking with Frank all about his career, his perspective on the industry, the message that he sent in his performance, and why it matters for customers, baristas, craftspeople alike, and also about the craft of operations and the importance of delegation and mentorship in the industry. So, this is a wonderful conversation. I'm so glad to have gotten the opportunity to talk to Frank all about career, coffee competitions, philosophy of work, and beyond. So, I hope you feel the same way. I think you will. Without further ado, here now is my interview with the new 2024 US Barista Champion, Frank La. Hey, Frank, welcome to Keys to the Shop. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me, Chris.
You would be doing great, right? Because you are the
Yeah.
new US Barista Champion. Yeah. So
Yes.
congrats.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
How does it feel? I mean, that's a kind of a trite question, but what's the feel of a champion?
I feel like I went through stages of it, but definitely in the beginning, it was very surreal. It's been a pipe dream of mine, like uh, to become the U.S. Barista champion, but almost in a way where like a kid dreams of making it to the NBA or playing for their favorite team. It's like that'd be so cool to have it actually happen. It was in the beginning didn't feel real, but over the next few hours leading to the next day, it started to sink in that I was actually the United States Barista champion, and it's been an amazing high. And my wife and I've just been waking up every day like I can't believe this happened. I can't believe we're champions. So it's been great.
That's wonderful. It's so cool to hear. And I think it's really interesting that it's been you were a competitor a while back. I don't want to say the early 2000s, but it was in, 2013, 12, 14. But you took 9 years off
Mhm.
from competition. And I'm pretty sure this was your first entry back into competition.
Yeah. So I competed for the first time in 2013. I discovered competitions maybe in 2010, 2011, and just saw the level of competitors, and I was just amazed by these baristas who were just showcasing their skills, their charisma, being able to do it all within 15 minutes. And some of the people that really inspired me and I looked up to were, Michael Phillips and Katie Carjulio and Charles Babinski and Chris Baca, Jared Truby, just like amazing competitors. And I was like, wow, that's super cool. Maybe one day I can do something like that. And I think it took me about 2 years, 3 years to kind of like muster up the courage to give it a shot. And I decided to compete. At the time that we had like these 6 different regionals, so I was part of the Southwest regionals.
Yeah.
Competed at Verve for the first year, and was a nervous wreck, shaking hands, stumbling through my words. But it was super fun to do it for the first time. And I didn't make it to the nationals, but at the time they were allowing competitors who didn't advance open slots. So I did try to compete again, and I competed at the nationals that year in Boston, which was the same year they were filming the documentary Barista. So I got to be a part of that a little bit. And then in 2014 is when I kind of like took all the things I learned from, right. Like I got disqualified on my SIGBEV in 2013 because I didn't pour all of my espresso out. Learning things like that, right? So next year I took lessons from that and really just dedicated a lot more time to it. I ended up getting third in the Southwest in 2014 behind Charles Babinski and Eden Marie, which to me was like an amazing accomplishment. Got to go to nationals in Seattle and just did not do well there. And then, the next year, my company, at the time, I was working for a company called Copa Vida. We thought it was a better decision for me to coach somebody else to kind of give them an opportunity. And I learned a lot through that, and was an amazing experience. And then just kind of over the years, more responsibilities. We were expanding, we were growing, and competition kind of became less and less of a priority for myself and for our company. And so it ended up being 9 years. And last year was the first year we started our business in 2020, and it was the first year I had the opportunity to compete for my own company. And so I took it and put a lot of energy and thought. I had to relearn a lot of rules. So much have changed. We back then we had wash process, natural process, and naturals. That was it. And now we've
Yes.
got so much more exotic varieties and processing methods, relearning all the rules, especially like the importance of flavor calls and all those things. So it
Yeah.
was a kind of a relearning thing, but somehow managed to get top 6 in the country. And I was certain I was done after that because I was like, I don't know how much further I can go up. But my wife convinced me on the plane ride back from Portland, you got top 6. Give it one more year and see how you can do. And the fact that Worlds was going to be in Busan, Korea, and I'm a Korean, I thought it would be so cool to represent the U.S. in Korea. And so I put one more effort into this thing, and happy to say like our efforts paid off.
Wow. That really is something. And I enjoy the fact that your hiatus from competition was simply a matter of professional and practical consideration for other people, for yourself. You're busy doing the work of coffee, and the competition took a back seat to some of that stuff. And no doubt some of that helped you in how you pursued competition 9 years later, where you had those shaking hands and all the nerves and stars in your eyes around a lot of people that were the heroes of the competition world to you. That kind of has a way of building itself up in your mind, and it all comes out right when you're supposed to be having a smooth service, and all the yeah, it's terrible. But
Terrifying.
life seasons us over a course of nearly a decade, and I'm curious if some of that time away was sort of a stabilizing factor that you felt approaching this.
I think so in ways for sure. I mean, during those 9 years, I didn't necessarily keep too close of an eye on the competition circuit. I just kind of was like, well, I'm not part of it. I always knew who the winners were, but I didn't like follow every regional and all that stuff. And during that time, I just focused on, personal development in terms of just learning how to grow a business and help with that. And I learned how to become a better barista along the way. And I think a lot of those things translated and prepared me for this moment. Just having that time to kind of focus on myself and my own skills was, I think, very helpful.
What's the year, going really far back here, what's the year that you noticed or at least decided that coffee is a serious pursuit for me?
Somewhere around 2011. I think it was still pretty early in on my career. I actually originally wanted to be a chef. I got a business degree out of college, and I had this kind of like simplistic plan of like I'm gonna go to school, graduate with business degree, go to culinary school, and then open my own restaurant. It just seemed like when you're young, that's how it goes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And so after I graduated from college, it just seemed such a it didn't make sense to me that I'd work in a kitchen and just be like peeling potatoes and carrots, and that'd be like my job for a few months or even a year. And so I was like, man, I got to do something else that makes more sense for me. I tried to go the business route, started applying to all these jobs, and couldn't really land anything because it was like kind of like right after the recession, so nobody was hiring. Everyone was looking for work experience, which I had none. So I decided I let me work at a local coffee shop that a friend introduced me to, and I said I'm just gonna work here for a year, do the best I can, and use that as a resume builder, and then I'll start applying for real jobs, so to say. And it wasn't until like a few months into the job, I eventually went to another coffee shop, and I had this shot, so to say. And I think this is more of an old head term, but I had a God shot,
Yeah.
and it was just like this symphony of flavors, and it was like for me back then it was more of like on the low tone sweetness. It was like it tasted like a Snickers, like chocolate, caramel, nutty, nougat, and it was just so apparently sweet. And at the time, we weren't weighing shots. And so for me to repeat that, I was like, how do I get that again? And it was just like that moment was so special to me. I was like, wow, this industry is so amazing. And I want to share moments like these with as many people as possible. And that's when I knew I might I might be doing this for a while.
Wow, I love that, and I am a partial. I like the old heads comment. Yeah, definitely partial to the chocolate, the nougat, the nutty. I love that there's all these processes out there for sure, and there's a wide variety. But there is something about that mysterious. We weren't weighing shots necessarily. We
Yeah.
weren't. The it's like the lack of accuracy made so many careers because there was we have to chase that, and like I've already
Oh yeah.
invested this much. If I had had a scale, maybe I never would have chosen coffee. Um, so your culinary disposition went over to coffee, and you pursued this as a way of providing experiences for people. So I imagine somewhere in the midst of all of your barista work, you started to become sort of a leader in the space
Mhm.
of coffee shops, like a manager or trainer, having a hand in curating those experiences or pursuing the opportunities. What were the opportunities, the first opportunities you had within your career that was like Frank gets to have a say in curating experiences for guests beyond just like making the order that the guest has?
For me, my first coffee shop job was at this really local, cute mom and pop shop. I actually went to like, it used to be an after school. It was like a Korean after school, and I used to go there when I was a kid. And then the owners eventually turned that building into a coffee shop.
Oh,
And it was just, I was just an employee. I didn't get to curate any of the drinks, but it was a very foundational part of my experience, just learning how to make coffee. We were using Intelligentsia at the time, 2010, so learning how to dial in Black Cat and all that stuff was amazing. I didn't really have an opportunity to make an imprint on what we were serving and the drinks we were doing until I got to this brand new shop at the time. It was called Cafe Dulce in Little Tokyo, and a friend of mine had introduced me to James Choi, the owner there, and he was the first person. He's a few years older than I am, but really gave like kind of a nod to your podcast name, gave me the keys to the shop and always kept telling me. I suggested a lot of changes, and I'm like, hey, we should do this, and he would always say, would you do that if this was your own shop? And I said, I would do this if it was for my own shop. He's like, all right, let's do it. And
wow.
he was kind of the first person to empower me in that way, and I thank him a lot in that sense, in that he gave me an opportunity to do something. And I was such a wide-eyed kid at the time. I was absorbing everything I could from all over the LA coffee scene, and absorbing it and then filtering out what I wanted to express. and James really gave me that opportunity. And I think the ultimate expression of that was when we got to do a pop up in downtown LA. It was an illegal pop up, no permits, no nothing. Like we had this
The
empty
best
warehouse.
kind. Yeah.
Yeah, we had this empty warehouse. We built these like really cool carts out of reclaimed wood, which at the time was a really cool thing. And we had these roll up doors. It was walking distance from the Staples Center. And the concept was we partnered up with a art gallery at the time, and they specialized in street art. And the idea was every month we had these pony walls up. Every month the pony walls would be painted white, and a street artist would take over, and it would be their art, their space for that
Ooh.
month. And then on our side, we would turn that into we would feature a new roaster every month. The idea was every month you would come in, it would feel like a different experience, a different shop. And it wasn't sustainable because we got shut down 3 times before we were like, okay, we can't do this anymore. But that was but that was a huge learning experience for me. I got to work with so many cool roasters at the time that I wouldn't have been able to. We worked with Stumptown, we worked with Madcap. We were the first LA Madcap account. It was such a cool experience to be able to taste so many different coffees, and that was a really cool experience.
What year was that?
That was 2012.
Man, that's such
2012.
a ahead of its time concept.
I honestly think about that all the time. I'm like, man, if we had that now, it would be such a cool space to visit. And it was kind of like it kind of turned into like the Baristas Cafe. Like all the baristas in LA would come there, and that's exactly what I wanted. Like at the time, I was like, I really wanted to earn my reputation as an actual like respected barista, and like to have a lot of the best baristas in the country come there, or
Mm.
in LA come there, was like such a affirmative experience.
I'm sure it helped you greatly, that affirmation of your peers. And
Hmm.
at the same time, as a business owner now, I'm curious how you view peer affirmation versus customer experience and the way that you weigh it today. Your brand, Be Bright, and looking at the names of blends and the way they're described is something that is inside baseball for baristas means we do kind of overcomplicate things sometimes. We like the options, the funky, the weird, the rare, novel. But your approach is it's very high quality and excellent and simple to understand as well for
Yeah,
customers. So for those of us who are maybe earlier in our careers and are maybe like, I really want to be a respected barista and I want that the admiration of my peers, but you have experienced this maturation over time now where you run a business that is it, how do you balance that, I guess, is the question today
yeah.
versus when you were first in it.
I think with peer evaluation, that was definitely something I valued early on in my career because I was just trying to make it out there, and I think in nature, I'm a very competitive guy. Like I want to be respected for what I do. Because I put a lot of work into it, and at the time it was very important for me. At the same time in LA back then, you had a lot of great coffee shops that really showcased excellence, but at the same time, it was not a very approachable experience. I felt scared asking questions going into coffee shops and intimidated by these baristas with like really cool outfits and really expensive machines, and
Yeah.
it felt like a daunting experience. Like it felt like I was knocking on the door of the cool clubs kid and trying to get accepted into it. I didn't like that at all. And so when we did what we did, we always pursued excellence, but we did it in a way where we wanted anyone and everyone to be accepted. You have questions, we'll answer it. And we always did that because we wanted to make sure that there was never a moment where anybody in any walk of their journey in coffee would feel like, oh, I feel like I can't ask these questions or I can't approach them. We wanted to pursue excellence but be approachable. And I think that's been my mantra ever since because of my early experiences in this industry. And I think we have seen a little bit of that change in our industry in LA. I do still see it occasionally, but with Be Bright, that was from the get-go something we wanted to do, which was we don't like insider language. Like we're not gonna say all these things that make you feel like, whoa, they're talking about something like I don't understand. And so with Be Bright, it was all about simplicity. It was all about understanding what kind of coffee you want and getting what you want. And that's kind of like the main goal of what Be Bright is about is every coffee drinker, wherever they are in their journey, has an ideal cup of coffee. My job isn't to tell you what you should like. My job is to get you what you like. And if we can shorten that distance of what you like and what we have and match you with that, we've done our job. And so we sell our coffee in 4 categories: dark and bold, rich and smooth, bright and lively, unique and surprising. And I feel like with those 4 categories, there's is enough coffees to get every kind of customer wherever they're in their journey a kind of coffee that they want, and
Yeah.
if you like just super dark coffees, we have a coffee for you. If you like something classic, you want to maybe put a little splash of milk sugar, we've got a coffee for you. You like something bright, something fruity, we got a coffee for you. If you like funky out there, like, whoa, what is this, we've got a coffee for you. So that's kind of been our approach. Like we want to have a coffee for every palate.
I like that approach so much, not only because it's customer forward and it's prioritizing that relationship and building trust and a safe place to explore coffee, but it's also giving a lot of depth and breadth to explore. Whereas if you are in a coffee shop, and everyone has their own concept, so I'm not trying to throw shade on anything, but one might get the impression with a more narrow category of options that coffee itself is narrow because to you and I, the coffee industry is this broad thing because we know about all the nooks and crannies. It's kind of our business. But a customer who just shops at your shop, and that's really coffee as a utility, and sometimes it's a novelty, but always it's your shop or this other shop. That's their world. So by doing what you're doing, it's like you're opening up their world to all of these places I could go.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that through what you've been doing, people have taken you up on the exploration part of things, even if they are in the dark and bold or the smooth. Or
Yeah.
is that something that's happened?
Definitely. I mean, I think one thing that I've always hated was when baristas were explaining coffees, it would like the all the jargon would fly over the customer's head. It'd be like, and they got none of it. Uh, and so I think with our categories, it's easy to navigate through it, right? So we always ask them, oh, so what kind of coffees do you like? Do you like, do you add milk to your coffees? Do you like, and so we ask them questions that then gets us to like where in the general vicinity that we think they'll like. And then from there, we can give them a few options. And it's been really cool because it's empowering not only for the customers, but also for my employees. They feel like they can navigate through our lineup pretty easily instead of like having to memorize 11 different coffees individually. They can memorize our 11 different coffees through these categories, and it
Yeah.
gives them a framework. And so I think that's been really helpful.
With your competition routine this time around, the winning routine, was there an element of what you do at Be Bright that you really were putting into that and wanting to communicate through this routine? What was the main theme and how you approach things differently this time around versus when you had left off all those years ago?
My last competition I did was centered on the theme of time and the importance of time within all the different chains and different levels of coffee. And I think that was a really cool concept at the time. Uh, this year, my focus was on this Japanese word called Kodawari, and idea is that it loosely translates to the relentless pursuit of perfection. And the idea of it isn't that we are pursuing perfection as a destination, but rather the pursuit is aspirational. It's lifelong. It's something that we will never get to, but yet we pursue it because it's something that will help us grow and bring excellence to our craft.
Hmm.
Mm.
Okay,
Mhm.
so in the routine, well, before we go there, Do you think that that's something that, with when we're talking about craftspeople, right? We can see that we're going to work on this, we're going to work on that. Is it something that you think is also a customer trait? Do customers also have a pursuit of this quality, just like craftspeople?
I think some customers do. I think some customers have that desire and look for that. But I think universally, most customers recognize it. They recognize when something is different because this person has poured so much attention to detail, persistence, and so much thought into what they're doing that it shows up in whatever they're consuming, whether it's art, whether it's sports, whether it's food or drinks. I think people recognize that in a way that it stands out. And I think that's the beautiful thing about Kodawari is that people may not even know the word, but it's a concept that people adhere by because this is something that resonates with them. And I thought that was a really cool concept to talk about and showcase how the best in our industry have this trait. They have this innate desire to push the best and yet not settle when they get to a certain point. And I think that's
Hmm.
it's cool because like it's evident in the way the industry has grown from the last time I competed to now. Like there's so much development in processing and roasting and extracting. We weren't using half the tools we're using now when I was competing. All we needed to bring was a tamper and you were good to go. But now we've got WT tools, we've got, nucleus, Paragon, extract chilling. So like we continue to see these innovations, and that happens because people are always pursuing more, more. How can we get more flavor? How can we see more development in our industry? And I think that's the reason why I want to speak on it because it's just ever evolving.
Why is it important? Where's the importance of this pursuit in terms of experience, or ultimately, maybe the question is all of this unto what?
That's a good question. I think there's kind of a two-part answer to that. One is that in a sense with Kodawari, it's self-fulfilling. The pursuit is actually for no one else but yourself. You do this because you are pushing yourself. And in the traditional Japanese sense of the word, it's very much that. It's this self-fulfillment of like, I'm doing this for myself and no one else. This is, I will, I will do these really minute attention to detail things, not because this customer is asking for it, but because I know that if I do this, it will increase my product or whatever it may be. For the first part of the answer, I think it's a self-fulfilling pursuit. It's like it's not for anyone else but for myself and for me to have this inner satisfaction that I'm always pushing myself to be better and better.
Yeah.
I think the second full answer to that on more of a, I guess, economical sense is that when when innovations happen through perseverance, through attention to detail, through this always improvement, always improving sense, it brings opportunity for higher recognition, which usually means brings opportunity for higher prices, not just for the barista, but for producers, for roasters, kind of along the chain. There's added value that happens, right? And there's some of the prices that producers are fetching for these coffees didn't really exist many years ago, and that's because of what they've done to their coffees, because of this continued pursuit of getting more expressive coffees, getting more, out of a coffee that we haven't seen before.
That's very interesting. I am curious how you communicate that in 15 minutes.
That is a challenge, definitely. My script, if I had used my original script, would have taken 30 minutes. At least for me, that is always one of my biggest challenges is to distill what I want to say and shave it down to really important points and also being mindful of using language that's going to score me the most points and and also communicate to my judges, I'm doing this for this reason. My intro talks about how I'm always amazed by experiences where it wows us, and I find myself chasing after these moments, and that I realize that they're not these exceptional moments aren't coincidences. They're actually the pursuit of someone who is pursuing greatness, perhaps unseen. And I introduced the concept of Kodawari as the relentless pursuit of perfection, and how it's woven into everyone involved in my presentation today, starting with the producer of this coffee, Nestor Lasso, who 5 years ago took over his family farm. And I just talk about the different steps he does to this coffee. So spend about 2 minutes about talking about that. I spent 2 minutes, spent a minute on what I'm doing to the espresso to get those flavors and
Yeah.
enhance it as much as I could. And then the milk course, I talk about the innovations happening with all the different kinds of milks competitors are using, and then what I wanted to share, which was a different take. And then my signature beverage talked about the four pillars of Kodawari, which is passion, persistence, commitment, and attention to detail. And I represented four different ingredients for that, and how when they come together, it brings Kodawari. And my outro was talking about how I'm always inspired by the pursuit of perfection. And when we embrace that ourselves individually, we can really push our industry forward by giving
Mhm.
birth to three things: innovations, elevated quality standards, and unexplored flavor possibilities. The encouragement I give at the end is that the great thing is that it's in us all. We just need to embrace it. And when we do, the result is not just outstanding coffee, but a dynamic and thriving coffee culture that captivates the world. And my
Mm.
last line is: perfection is found in the person and their journey, not in the cup. And
Ah,
that's, yeah.
you win. You win. That's that's great. And
Thank you.
it's interesting how we discuss this journey of perfection and attention to detail. And I've told this story maybe a few times on the show, how when I was a brand new barista way back in, one of my first write ups from a manager was that I paid too much attention to the espresso machine and not enough attention to other things. And as we pursue perfection and attention to detail on the pillars of this practice and this mindset and framework, it strikes me that a large part of your career has been also pursuing this in the behind the scenes world of operations and leadership. You were with Copa Vida for a while, and it's not a small company.
Mhm.
And you're a regional manager, if I'm not mistaken, after being a manager. And now you own your own company and run that. And so, how does this principle of the pursuit and the journey of perfection and all that you've just discussed apply to the things that are, I don't want to say they're not as fun, they're not as tasty as coffee, to the papers and the meetings and everything else, but how have you seen this principle at work in the way that you have grown and pursued these elements of operations, which actually makes the cup possible?
With that pursuit, it's important to note for myself that we don't do this in a way where it's just about the product, but it's actually for the customers. And if we lose sight of that, there's no reason to do this, right? It's like it's for the customer. And our job is to give the customer what they want, and hopefully in a way that they'll enjoy it. And
Yeah.
so I think when it comes to helping grow a business, it was important in the sense that, like, I also, in my training and in my development for my baristas, that always was really pushed across. And that was always like, we pursue excellence in what we do, not because we want to obsess over it in and of itself, but because we want that to become second nature, in a sense, so that we can then put our heads up, greet customers, and do this in a way where, like, we're so skilled, we don't even need to look down, and we're like, hey, how are you doing, just kind of in that way. I think that's something that's always been something that's important to me. And some of the training material I've created, here's one document that I called heads up service. It's like, we don't say, hey, welcome. and like look down, but we say, "Hey, welcome," as we're greeting them, and then not looking down on what we're doing because we've mastered this part of it.
I like that. And so that part of what you've done in your positions of leadership has one of the priorities has been to communicate that message to the people who are responsible for these day-to-day things. And they rely on you to do your job well, which I imagine also makes it the message makes its way into your job description. You're doing this for them, who are in turn doing that for the customer. What are some of those moments for you where you were deep into the managerial aspects of the business, where it felt maybe a little bit more mundane than you would have liked, but when everything came together just the right way, it gave you more motivation to do what you had to do, the scheduling, the paperwork, or all of the things that may seem mundane. Sometimes we see the fruit of that labor in such a way that it breathes new life into that vital role. Have you had any of those experiences?
I think definitely just through seeing the team perform at a high level is something that I've always taken joy in. And I guess just growing up and also kind of finding my way through the industry, I always had this sense that like I can do it the best. I can't trust anyone else to do this. Like whether it be making a syrup or whether it be making a cold brew, like I got it, I got it. No, I got it. It was like this kind of like, but then I realized I can't grow a business when I do that because I can't clone myself in six different locations and only trust myself. I had to put it down on paper. I had to create SOPs. I had to train them. And so, in that sense, it really helped me create very structured programs and structured training material so that what I'm doing and what I feel like only I can do best, I can train others to do.
Mm.
And I think that really pushed me to like make materials digestible, but also very detailed in a way where it's like, that this is exactly how I would do it. Eventually, with Copa Vida, especially, we ended up opening, I think, 7 to 8 locations during my time, and to have, let's use something very simple, but like a vanilla latte taste the same down in San Diego that it would in Pasadena
Yeah.
was a huge accomplishment because we made our own vanilla syrup. The espressos were dialed in, the milk were steamed right. I think was a really cool affirmation.
That's really awesome. Yeah, it feels as though like mentorship is part of this, and that you have gotten so good at something that if you're the best at it, it's almost like there's no level to go from there unless you're
Hmm.
going to become a teacher of it. And then now you've opened up a whole new world of responsibility for yourself, and especially as a business owner now, it's all on you in a
Yeah,
way. Well, not in a way,
yeah.
but like in every way. So imagine like starting Be Bright, you started at such a higher level of understanding of those systems and SOPs and things, but I imagine you've also adjusted pretty regularly as the business has kind of shown you what it's needed. Is that something that you've kind of done where you can change things and not have it be as big of a deal as it might have been to change things prior when you didn't feel like you had as much flexibility?
Oh, definitely. We're we're at least for now just at a size where we're just more nimble and more quick because we just have the one cafe. We do pop-ups, but I think kind of going back to the mentorship part of it, I think I really learned a lot from my previous boss at Copa Vida. His name is Steve Chang, and I remember him telling me when we first opened our shop in Pasadena. He looked at me and said, "If a year from now you're still behind that bar and you're pulling shots and you're making every drink, we have failed as a company." And to me at the time, that didn't make any sense. I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, I'm going to be making coffee forever. Like that's what I
Yeah.
do." And it makes so much sense to me now because if I didn't step away and start creating material that would become sustainable, we wouldn't have grown to where we did. And I really thank him a lot for that development. And it does carry on to here now too. we at Be Bright, like I try not to do everything because if I had it my way, I would be doing everything and I would have no time left in the day. But I think taking kind of my experiences, learning from my previous experiences has taught me to trust others and create systems and give opportunities for them to take it and grow with it.
Yeah. And then you get to see like mini versions of yourself and all of your employees like
Yeah,
starting their
for
journey.
sure. Yeah.
I have one last question here as we wrap up, and it's kind of one of those like, if you could change the world, Frank, what would you change? Questions, which is basically right now with the view you have of the industry, what do you really desire to see come to fruition or come into the industry, or even that it's already there but you want to see it grow into the future? What's that thing for you that it's like this is needed and we want to see more of this in the coming years?
Of course, kind of going across the chain, like on the producing level and on the producing side, I love to see more sustainable practices in terms of making sure producers get not just market price, but above market price. And I do think in general we are seeing that, and I'm not privy to all the details into that, right? Like I don't know what the cost of production for a green bean is, down to the minute details. But I would love to see that becoming more of a thing, and for roasters and importers to not be afraid of those kind of increases. But that does have ripple effects down the line as well for us as well. Like we need to make sure we're pricing things right so that it's sustainable as a roasting business. But I think if I could choose one thing, it would be I would love to see our industry grow in a way where we can create career baristas.
Hmm.
And that's something that I'm trying to understand myself as a business owner. We're trying to make it month to month. We're trying to like just we're trying to survive. We're still early on, but how do I structure my business in a way where my baristas can actually see this as a career? Where they can have healthcare, where they can have 401k, where they can have a livable wage in a city like LA. And right now, minimum wage is at 15.75 in LA,
Yeah.
and compare that to when I first started coffee, it was at 18, or sorry, $8. And so
It,
we're seeing a huge increase on that side, but then it's still not enough because cost of living is going up, rent is at an all-time high, doesn't seem like it's slowing down. At the same time, I know that as a business owner, my room to give more is still pretty low. And as much as I want to see that, I need to myself take a look at the structure of things and see where how can I do it so that my baristas can make this their career and not have to worry about like, oh, I need to become a manager to make this a thing that I can actually commit to as my career. Like how can we have more career baristas? And so I think that's something that I definitely want to champion and like look into because that is something that I want to see in my own company. And
mm,
frankly speaking, it's not right.
right.
So
Well, I think that it's interesting that we've come full circle in a sense because you, in the first part of our conversation, mentioned that God shot moment, if you will, was about you wanting to then share that experience with other people, to curate experiences for people. And now, all these years later, your curation of experience is not just coffee, but it's career. That you want to create some kind of a career path that is a experience for other people to share in your business. I think that's amazing. This has been cool, man. I really appreciate you sharing so much on the show, and
yeah,
thrilled for you to. It seems like a fairy tale. Like you come
yeah.
in, you win, you're going to Busan, and know you're going to do so well. How can we stay in touch with you online and your company as well?
My Instagram handle is flawless without the W, so it's kind of an oxymoron, but it's a FLALESS,
Nice.
and that's my personal Instagram handle, and I'll be kind of I guess recording and tracking or sharing my journey on my road to Busan. this is like for me uncharted territory. So I'm learning so much, and it's pretty overwhelming in terms of how to, preparing for getting there. My ultimate goal was always win the US, and then I didn't realize that it would open this level to a new boss almost, like, it's an even harder boss, and so, I'm learning so much about, like, kind of behind the curtains on the details of preparing for Worlds, and it's been really cool because I never thought about it and I've never seen it, and so I'm gonna share as much of that as I can on my own social media, and then also on Be Bright. Be Bright Coffee is our Instagram handle, all one word, and we're just sharing what we're doing as a company, but also we'll be sharing kind of our journey on our road to Busan and to Worlds there as well.
Excellent. Frank, thank you so much. We're rooting for you, and I
Thank
appreciate
you.
your insights. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, everybody, I hope that you enjoyed that conversation with Frank. Wonderful thoughts to continue to think about in your own work and in your own coffee shop as you go through these stages of development. It depends on where you are in the whole narrative arc of your own career. But a lot of the things that Frank shared here, I think, are super relatable. And you're probably nodding your head as we're talking about them in this conversation. So, as always, my encouragement to you is to write these things down, meditate on them a bit as you go throughout your week, and see if you can recognize these things come up in your life. And maybe you'll be able to pursue that perfection and that craftsmanship in your coffee, in your communication, in your operations, and take a page from Frank's playbook and push the industry forward in that way, in your way, for yourself and for the people who are impacted by your work. And so a huge thank you to Frank Law for being on the show. Go follow Be Bright Coffee at Be Bright Coffee on Instagram, Flawless at Flawless FLALESS on Instagram. That's Frank's personal Instagram handle. So pretty funny. And I am, again, thrilled to have had Frank on the show. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback for me about today's episode, please do email me. Chris at keystotheshop.com is where you can do that. It's also where you can reach out for Keys to the Shop consulting at Chris at keystotheshop.com. And again, do follow Frank on his road to Busan and be rooting for him as he represents the United States at the World Barista Championships. And with that, that is the end of the show. Don't forget to subscribe over here on YouTube as we develop this channel more. Stay tuned for all the content coming out. Subscribe on the podcast. Share these episodes. Share this with your social media following, with your network. That makes the biggest difference. And I really appreciate all of you joining here on the show and supporting over the years. It means a ton. And as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.